In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Dear viewers, welcome to an interesting moment. This moment is simply interesting, and the pursuit of it, in some sense, and its conveyance is the lecture. I wanted to speak about a very unique sentence and a very important sentence that occurred to me. The human mind that doesn't notice God will fall into infinity, beyond looping ad infinitum is the subtitle. Now, I have to explain to you what I mean by this. How can the human mind fall into infinity if it doesn't acknowledge a creator? Alright, it's getting cold, guys. I gotta turn on the car. Alright. At first, I had written the human mind that cannot acknowledge God will fall into infinity. Then the revision, the human mind that doesn't notice God will fall into infinity. And I was kind of choosing between these two sentences. And then it just occurred to me that I want to acknowledge the reality that for those people who never notice, we want to include those beings, or based on any reason you choose to ignore an overall ultimatum of being. You see, dear human beings, what can I say? What we consider to be the human mind is a vicinity of awareness. And in that vicinity, we notice that which moves beyond our own will. You see, human beings are in the illusion of control and in the illusion of ownership. And even the notion of a self is an illusion. But it is a useful illusion. That's the beauty of culture, and also its ugliness. That the ways that human beings are behaving in 2025, who says it's in 2025? There are behaviors and attitudes and habits that have echoed from antiquity. There are patterns that have not faded into history. They have remained. There is something there's something about how we are present and how the world is present that creates the greatest mystery known to the human mind. You see, There's something I remember I was studying fear, and you're gonna be like, that's the nerdiest thing I've heard you say, Mr. Within. I'll be like, it is. Actually, I was looking into what people had said about fear, because fear had paralyzed me in various moments of my life. Fear had taken away the moment. That means, imagine the moment wants to give you something, and your fear is like, no, I don't trust the moment, I don't like this, da 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 da, and you miss out on what could have been. And then years later you realize that in some sense you decided to be afraid of a world you thought you knew. But if you don't know the world, what are we afraid of really? If we don't know what is beyond death, what are we afraid of really? It is in some sense, on some level, I am speaking, I am in a very unique position. My whole life has been a position between worlds. I have been that soul that is between worlds in the world. And what do I mean? Born in 1991, I was one of the last authentic generations that climbed trees, actually. You know? Before kids were climbing trees in phone apps, there were like people who actually climbed trees. Like, I wonder the future generations, how long is it going to occur to them? Wait a minute, I can climb a tree right now. Like, to climb a tree is confidence. Yet I want to speak about my fears, guys. I want to tell you. Do you understand? It's only when you've been broken and there is nothing else left to break that you can easily speak about moments of breaking. It is only a strong soul that can in some sense change the intensity that the world is force feeding it. The pleasantries are out of the way in the first 2,500 lectures. It's like the rest is just about a serious approach to the playful nature of reality. And where I'm going with this is I want to tell the viewers seriously, like super seriously, like hyper seriously, like beyond seriously. If the human mind does not quickly come, not quickly, but does not come into the understanding that it is standing in the presence of an unknown intelligence, it will go on its whole life in its own room. It's like Plato's allegory of the cave was so ahead of its time because it was a matter of the function of existence. That means it's all about range. When I wonder about the greatest people on this planet, sometimes I have this strange habit. Some people kind of want to find what they have in common with others. I'm strange. Sometimes I just appreciate how we're different. I sometimes appreciate worlds that I wasn't born in, or cultural realities that could have been worse. That means, to be honest, dear viewers, you're going to reach this moment I am in. Civilization's probably going to reach it in 50 years or something. Maybe or hopefully earlier. But there will come a time where you will realize and you will laugh at the idea of yourself. You will laugh at your name. You will laugh at how your species has been telling itself a story in an unknown world. And after that laughter settles down, you will be standing in the presence of that which you know is not your free will. Do you understand? You're given your humanness to notice beyond the human. Every creature, every form, it is the divine command. It in some sense it clarifies itself as God wills it. That for the longest time I was like, okay, man, all right, not for to me it's very long, but it's like I when the moment I caught on to okay, this is a commanded universe of a higher position of being. That's when life did not become about discovering the truth of matter. What the F are you doing? It's like, yeah, guys, let's discover the truth of something we won't permanently be. For me, it is strange. It is strange. I will probably be like someone who, I don't know, some people of the future generations might see me, and those who can see my heart might weep. Because my heart has understood that existence is not my property. That existence doesn't belong to what? A biological organism that's simulating a thought for itself to own the moment for a little while consciously and then leave? Is that what we are here for? And in some sense, how can I tell you? It's like I don't know. I think I find, like, I don't have kids. Okay, I'm not married. But when it comes to wondering about civilization, where is that responsibility? Where is the potential vision? Like, how do I explain it to you? You think this world is a nice place, you make it nice. How do you make it nice? With purpose. How do you find purpose? You look at the clues that you're given. You look at that face you have in the mirror. You look at your eyes. You wonder what your eyes have seen beyond your biological eyes. And so the intensity doesn't matter. At some point you will realize that the greater game was not what do we do as a thought here. It wasn't like what you did with your free will. It was if you realized that the free will was a simulation. Like, sorry, I'm getting emotional because in some sense the soul is enraged. The soul is enraged. There is a moment where there is sorrow, sadness, and hopelessness. And then the hopelessness waits for the hope. Waits for the hope. And if it doesn't arise, there comes existential rage. Oh, you don't know. You don't know all the emotions that human beings have acknowledged so far. You don't know. You're not the advanced humanity yet. We're just conscious of moving our body. We're not even conscious of how our red blood cells are moving. We're not conscious of all the existential content in the moment, to the degree that in some sense we're creating tools that will complete the rest of our minds. Do you understand the war that is going on here? Yeah, and all I can say to you is that I'm a fucking podcaster. Man, I understand when Machiavelli, in the book The Prince, in the foreword he wrote, I see this stuff, but I don't belong here. I have seen the realms of kings, but I am not a peasant. You know? That means it's honestly, guys, the royalty of life. If you want to know, you want to know who the elitists are in this world, they are not the wealthy. Those are children. Those are children. Any being, I don't give a F if it's some weird ass society or if it's some unstable minded person seeking for some sort of revolution. I will tell you, oh humanity, there will come a time where it will dawn upon you that this emotion I have now is because it's more unknown than known. And we stand here smiling every day, thinking that our lives were just sequences of actions based on what? Is it, like, to be honest, it broke my heart when I realized, do you understand, this civilization and civilization 1.0 did not have the decency to see what you are before telling you what you must be. And so now the same force comes back because you cannot hurt nature. The stress will come back to you like punching a wall. Do you understand? That is in some sense going against this realm. We're in an evolutionary leap. I'm getting emotional because the whole thing could have happened differently, and it's so obvious how it can update, but it doesn't, because the species has been convinced that by worshiping yourself, sometimes, do you understand? Like, I feel that my allegiance of my soul from the beginning of my birth was to the original reality of this realm. That means it's like, okay, thanks for the pointer. Adam and Eve, they listened to a simulated serpent rather than, in some sense, remembering the original power, the original place. Who is in charge here? It is not a conception. It is not an identity. Every being in the theological context has an identity except the system admin is beyond all identities. That means a creature of individualism trying to fathom the power that generated this whole moment. And there are humans who, these poor souls, think that it's man understood. They think that it's that easy, that human beings could tell a story in the middle of an unknown place and think that they know everything and act like they know everything. Why is the ego in some sense a burden on man? Because knowledge was not, let me tell you what knowledge is. Knowledge is power, okay? But it is power for the one giving it, not for the one getting it. They have lied. And it's not they, it's all of us. The species has lied to itself, and in some sense awakening to a newfound awareness of how reality is constituted. Therefore, new responsibility levels of all conscious beings will arise. Today, you're a human idea in a human story, and you're a human character in a human world. This is a luxury. This is a blessing. In the future, they will, we must hope that they don't forget what it means to be human, to be that foolish animal that in some sense, even though it didn't know, it still found humor. It still found compassion. It still found love and playfulness. It still found courage. It still found honor. Even though none of it made sense, our role is not defined based on the logic. It is based on what is present. That means the role of your soul . Sorry about that, guys. Had to relocate. Just had to drive for a moment. Anyways. I am trying to say that in no way I am saying that I know what's going on. I am a user like everybody else, and that's how I'm relating to you. I'm a user in this realm. There is moderators, and there is a system admin beyond the world room. The system admin's awareness is what we call the divine surveillance state. And in some sense, the moderators are here to, in some sense, test the created users. Do you understand? That means in a strangely bizarre way, human beings are being tested. That means the whole point of theology is like saying only those who are worthy get to go to heaven. And you know, when I was ignorant, you know, during my days of ignorance in 2023, where I was still living in shirk, which means that I was not considering God the higher power. I was considering the moderators to be God. And then imagine from having this mentality that the whole world is one universal being and we are being its presence non-dualistically, shifting into the realization that, wait a minute, it's still the world. The simulated is telling me the truth. And what can the simulated know? It's only from beyond. That means I will tell you something hilarious. I have been thinking so deeply ever since 2023 why Islam says that I'm Muslim, why Islam says that in some sense the Prophet of Islam, which to Muslims, what Prophet Abraham, peace be upon him, started is what Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, finished. And what that means, this is in the revelation of the Holy Quran, that in some sense, why was Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the seal of all prophets? Why? This was a mystery to me, but you don't understand. For me, Islam and the Holy Quran, it's like legit architecture from a different state awareness. It is not, no, it's not limited, it's not bound to human. Like, do you understand? It gives answers to beyond the human framework of reality. And then you're like, wait a minute. Now, I wondered why. And then I reached, strangely, this realization that what could be a greater claim. This actually is the reason. Like, I don't know how to explain it to you, but all ideological systems on this planet, as the force of, as the foundation of their design, the foundation of their, of all ideological systems are pretty much something created before. Do you understand? That means everything was attributed to man. Man stepped, it's like from the jungles, we stepped into man land, into human land. And in human land, we were not just humans. Do you understand? We were the ability to discriminate, not just as a separate object to reality, but as a separate subject to ourselves. That is what you call a mind, by the way. You understand? It's, I mean, a very basic way of saying it. To me, I've simplified it. That means the way I've been taught about this world is very different than the way I'm going to teach my kids, if I have ever. You know? And the first thing I will tell my children is that you got to communicate your inner realms and your outer realms. I'll give you an example, right? So I'm not a parent, but imagine like you like I've been a kid before, you know? And so in some sense, how can I tell you? Imagine you're a parent and your child comes home from school or something, and you ask the child, like, how was your day at school or something, you know? And the child is quiet. Imagine the child's like, it was okay. That's it. That's when the parents should start being like, okay. Like, what silence is a sign of hiding. And in pure silence, you know, many shy souls stand hidden. But what I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to tell you is this. That If the child says okay, but they're zoned out, that means that the child, something happened that day. Do you understand? Right? And so, if I was a parent, I wouldn't be like, son, what happened today? I'll be like, you're hiding something in your inner realms. You know, what are you not telling me that you're seeing in your inner realms that's bothering you right now? And then you'll kind of not give the answer to the child, because that's a way of creating, you know, fragile human beings. You know, this is the most important thing about parenting. Don't solve your children's problems, but give them good problems to solve. You know, I think that's the key of it. And, you know, I am in no way certified to talk about parenting. I'm not a parent yet. But I have, in some sense, wondered about human psychology to such a degree that it bothered me. It bothered me how my inner realms could not clarify what the outer realms was. Do you understand? And the fact that civilization is conditioned, distracted by the question. That means just like how people file their taxes, do you understand? There should be a time every year where the person just has a deep, like, psychological, existential purpose review. Do you understand what I mean? That means on some level they don't say it's just deep and never think about life from different viewpoints. Do you know? Because I know the intensity of the inner realms. That means, I'll give you an example. Like, if somebody, if like a UFC fighter came to fight with me, do you know what I mean? At that point I gotta, like, at that point I gotta just, like, get in a car and drive somewhere else. You know, I'm like, okay, this guy knows Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I got to use some sort of tool to defeat him. You know what I mean? But not, I would probably, throw my shoe as a distraction and then run a different direction while he's looking at where the shoe's going. Yo, man, can you imagine somebody taking off their shoes, putting them on their fists, and they're like punching with the back of their shoes as a defense mechanism? That's some, like, next level. That's like shoe martial arts. I just invented that shit. Excuse me, guys. Excuse me. I'm going off topic. Where I was going with this is, the whole point of it was about that you have been, from the beginning of your life, living an inner life and an outer life. Now, the way most families globally, I live in the most international place on earth, and at the same time, do you understand? That means I've had so many different people thank me in their own languages, and I understood kind of with, like, a head nod. Do you know what I mean? Like, usually for holding doors open, yeah. It's not good to be a doorman on Earth, but to be a doorman beyond this realm is like, okay, all right, that's not that. I'm joking. Sorry, guys, some silliness. All right. Your inner life is private, and it is also sacred. Okay? But if you don't realize that when you're young, you will defile your own inner self. Do you understand? That means there were so many moments that, due to my inactivity, it's like, I don't know, it's like at some point you realize nobody has your eyes, and what are you going to do with what you see? And you wonder about what the most advanced action is, and the most advanced action seems to be the action of creation. Do you know? The awareness to creation. That means, like, like some parents are waiting, for, let's say, their child to come and, ask a question about, like, external reality, about life. I'm just waiting to see when my if I have kids, like when those kids would notice it's a simulation. That's the fascinating thing. We've been conditioned to treat it as all true. Who says all of it is true? Truth there is the presence of truth. I'm not saying there is no truth, but I'm saying that the value of it is different. That means if I open my eyes, okay, let's say I go and look at a tree and I'm like, this tree is just the meaning of life. You're not living as a human being in your inner life. You're living as an unknown awareness that has access to visualizations and probabilities of itself before it actually decides. So you're actually an unknown presence of a life force moving your life form in a place that we've all agreed that we're going to know it like this. In my observations of human psychology, I came across, or I should say my studies of this, like I came across a quote by Voltaire. He's a notable atheist known to, on his deathbed, when a priest came up to him and said, accept, Christ as your savior and go to heaven, like his last words were like, it's not, this is no time to be making enemies, old man. Like, I'm sorry I'm laughing, but it's just the nature of perception. Perception is personal, and humans have an access to their own life in a way that nobody else does, and their life is also accessible to others if they are around others. You know? That means I wonder how much of the world is just waiting, like how many people on earth are just waiting for someone to ask them a question. You know what I mean? Like the number has to be high. You know, they're like, somebody please ask about the hidden life I've been living behind my eyes this whole time. But you cannot expect anything from the outer realms in that sense, because it is not in the jurisdiction and in the domain of your free will. Do you understand? That means to truly be aware of the presence of your being, more than it's like you gotta choose a view. You gotta see, most people think through concepts. I don't know how, or I think maybe it's through just these lectures or something, that I think through the context. And this is why when I speak, I actually do it the other way around. People start, when you write, if somebody told you to write a story, you'd start probably with the concept, okay, and then you'd, in some sense, all right, I made this concept, all right, next concept, next scene. But it's instead of going scene by scene, it's first figuring out what universe your world is in. You understand? So you got to understand the context. Now, I'm somebody, I'm not judging the concept you think you are. I don't know you, right? But I am judging the context where we're all existing, due to the capacity of even having an ability to be okay, why can we see more advanced ways of reality behind our eyes than in front of it? What is it all waiting for? Right? And when we see humans, are they advanced? No, they're not advanced in nature. Right now, you know what's funny? Do you understand? The descendants, do you understand? The great grandchildren of all those brave, top dog, alpha on the hill kind of do you know what I mean? All those ancestors of us that kind of slapped saber-toothed tigers, they slapped like a tiger ran, jumped from a bush, and our ancestors were like, don't make me call my lawyer. Do you know what I mean? We had evolved far beyond the viciousness of man, but yet in that choice we became fragile. So if you took me or anybody, I'm sure anybody, and you just put them in a forest with a bunch of wild beasts, do you understand? What's even the UFC fighter gonna do? At some point, a terror arises of a reality that cannot go as expected, because that is what human beings fear. Why do you think so many egos on earth go berserk? Why do you think there's so much domestic violence? Do you understand? The wife thinks, like it's because of an argument. No, it's all about value propositions of being. Every person, you see, my father actually taught me this, right, when I was young. He's like, he told me and my twin brother Ramin, like he told us that, like, all right, how do I say it? People have a sense of being in relation to what they have. So, for example, if there's a group of people and one person comes there and says, hey, like says a joke or something, trying to fit in, that person is trying to have something they don't have. Do you understand? Right? Do you understand? So then it comes odd to all those people who have. Do you understand? And I'm saying a person's value, like, like a person can be like, how can I tell you? You could be the most vicious, like, jacked, kind of like thug looking, tattooed, like, like even like a cyborg hand kind of person. Do you know what I mean? Right? But deep down, you could be a very fragile self. Do you understand? And in modernity, because the human species has not acknowledged the depth of the depth to our intelligence, and how people, they're not just experiencing themselves just being a body in the world. They're experiencing all the ways that their mind so far has fathomed them. Your mind is imagining you, right? It's very hard to be like, yo, man, is my mind doing something, or am I seeing truth? And then who would be able to see truth without a sort of filtering process in the middle, such as the body? That means, I was making a point of it earlier. If, like, okay, I'll give you an example. If a UFC fighter wants to fight me, I would probably lose that fight. Okay, because I don't know Brazilian jiu-jitsu, or I might somehow find a way to knock out the guy before, you know? That means when somebody knows Brazilian jiu-jitsu and you just know how to punch, you get that one punch has to count. The most dangerous martial art is a martial art of deception. I mean, all war is based on deception, battle is based on deception, but the most intense deception is is like a distraction and an attack at the same time. So equivalent to like two attacks, two simulations of attacks. One of them is real. It's like in chess, like like the way you move must must have more than one probability of movement to it. Anyways, to shift from martial arts, I'm saying if an extraterrestrial landed, or some sort of, I don't know, if something wanted to invade my mind, do you understand? Not only will I teach it of God, will I remind it of the system admin, because all created beings know, and unless there is a creator that is not created, the created will be an infinite regress. That means we will creation, like, it's so strange. Like you can see, like, any, like, how can I say it? The world is a type of strange verb noun object that we can never know. Sometimes I wonder, why was it made so big? That means if God was just testing man, you know, why aren't we in a world where there's only human beings? Why are there all these different species, life forms, and different designs? This doesn't mean that there's a theological error. This means that the system admin's will surpasses. In the same way, for example, imagine a mother has triplets, okay, and those triplets, you know, they have a discussion, you know, one of them is theist, one of them is atheist, and one of the triplets is agnostic. Do you understand? Yet they can never know the reality that the system admin sees to decide. That means I get to see a certain range of reality and then based on that information decide upon it. The system admin has awareness to all reality at once. All knowing means there is nothing unknown to that being. The only known being here is the system admin. We are unknown beings and we're simulated. And soon we will realize as a species that we have, even though we have been conditioned to live as minds, as characters in a story, we're going to discover that this unknown awareness is actually a node that in some sense is receiving and connecting, do you understand, various ways that reality is happening. That means if you look at all the moments in existence, perhaps the human brain is where the value of all existence is colliding. It's like, how do I say it? It intersects. That means, like, it's like the inner realms and the outer realms. They're not like parallel, which is the common view, the usual view. They are intersected. Do you understand? That means it's like it's like two discs within each other. Do you know? That means imagine you cut like two CDs, like old school CDs, right? And you just cut one side of them and you connected two together. Do you understand? So in the same way, this is also the geometry that in billions of years will happen in the Andromeda Milky Way collision. However, I'm saying that in the same way, it's not parallel, it's intersecting, which means it divides reality into quadrants. That means you have parallel dimensions, which are just two different worlds. Okay, spirit realm. It's like human realm. Physical realm, non-physical realm. Do you know what I mean? Like that's a way of looking at reality in a parallel way. I'm that human being telling you guys it's not parallel, it's intersecting, and it's divided into quadrants. And I've figured out this thing, but because I'm at this moment a nobody podcaster, it doesn't matter. Do you understand what I find or what I discover? Do you understand? People seem to only do you know if civilization, including me, was like sheep, right? The sheep are used to usually eating from the palm that they are familiar with. Do you understand? Right? So therefore, new ideas are just going not acknowledged because their familiarization will kind of require the current system changing. Do you know what it means that we, when I say the unknown, like, do you know what that means? That means the edge of everything we know extends into the unobservable unknown, which is another way of saying the iceberg you see above the surface of the water is like, I don't know, what is it, like 1/3 or like 1/5, 1/4 of like the actual iceberg that's underneath. In the same way, there is a depth to you. You are an unknown life force. You have a DNA nobody has. If you choose to express yourself, you might not be like Superman or the Hulk or something, do you know? But you are in a way different from every other human. Do you understand? Like there will come a time where maybe there will be clones on this earth. Okay? Or whether they're android clones or I don't know, silicone or organic clones, I don't know. Like even organic, like I'll say it this way. Voltaire said, even if we didn't create the idea of, even if we didn't have the concept of God, it would be necessary to create it because we need to account. We need to account for the edge of a dualistic entity's reality. So if you're, so think of it this way. Right now you're a human being and there's different modes of living. There's like different, it's like different paths you can go here. Okay, you can choose to live on this earth till the day you die as just an ego. Do you understand? And the path of the ego is it's trying to be infinite. And the ego is another way of saying it's a state of consciousness where self is being considered as truth, rather than self being a state of consciousness or a simulated position. It's like first you need to get acquainted with your known self in a known world. You need to get to know yourself and get to know the world. But after you wake up, like, more than a couple thousand days on this planet, more than like 12,000 days at least, like you're gonna look at this system and you're gonna wonder about what's moving it. And really what's exciting about life is that really it's movement. It's like space, there's stuff in it. When the stuff moves and we can notice it, we call that intelligence. Because there requires to be intelligence to notice intelligence. Do you see? It's like the chicken and the egg situation. And the only explanation for the paradoxical nature of reality is that it wasn't created one by one. It was commanded instantaneously. So one path is you can't acknowledge that there's a greater power in this world than you. There's a greater will than you. You can't acknowledge that the world is not empty, that this world you didn't create it. And it's kind of like the same vibe as if you found yourself at a random house party. It's like it's not your house, right? And the whole point of it, at least one thing necessary, is to get to know the host. But the host is not an object. It's the greatest puzzle. It is in some sense, or I should say, the greatest like mystery to me. That how do I, as a simulated being, worship an original being? An original being where its originality is based beyond condition, conceptual condition. So I'm telling you, if you choose to follow the path of your ego, you will filter everything first through yourself, then you're accessing that server of meaning. Do you understand? But I'm saying that if you begin to see for a moment, all right, man, I can choose any name, any story, any character in a story and think I am that. Do you understand? But what separates it is that the nature of reality is that it's kind of funny. It's the most funniest moment in history where a species realizes that it has allowed a part of its moment of being to own the whole moment of being, which is the idea of self. That means one of my biggest questions, I have this one day, if I find like, next level Islamic scholars or something, you know, and I can ask him this question, it would be in some sense this. One path is realizing that the world is smarter than you, but not in a human way. That's a simple way I can say. It's more intelligent. That means how moments happen, it's like a planning has gone into how that moment happens, that it's strange. Like I am a firm, I believe that every person somehow notices before the moment happens. You just notice something's happening. Do you know what I mean? There's been moments where I've stepped out of the room, and the moment I've stepped out, it's like after a few minutes, it was like a clash of minds in that room. You understand? It's very important to realize the system admin is not anything in the system. So the first thing is you can't worship anything worldly as a Muslim. Do you understand? That means if somebody comes and tells you to do something in a certain way, do you know what I mean? They can, but they're acting like God to you. That means it's a type of shirk, because nobody knows. Like that means I didn't create you, you didn't create me, but one system admin created all of us as users. So if as a user I come and tell you what to do, or even if a moderator comes and tells you what to do, these are both errors, and you must first find, in some sense, the pure presence of your being in the pure presence of the world, the source of it. Like there was a moment where I was like, man, God is watching in the same way that everything is energy. And it just dawned on me that existence is itself surveillance like. Because why is there form at all? So there is a system admin here. We are all in the presence of that power, yet we are being tested to see if we can notice that infinity is a dead end, which means the desires of the ego are hollow. They're empty. That means, let's say somebody tells me doing this is good, and I go do that, and then in the afterlife, for example, they're like, yo man, you thought it was good. You and a bunch of people thought that was a good thing to do. Do you understand? But maybe it wasn't. Maybe we don't see man is not a creature of full clarity. That means there's ignorance. Ignorance occurs because we take shape, because we individualize. It's very difficult for me to tell you, like I can tell you my body, yeah, it's like separate from the world. My mind is not separate from my whole moment. My soul, which is unknowable at its core and at its depths, is not how nature is moving an ego, but how divine command, how in some sense there's a divine command that moves nature. That means you might think right now this is just me as like an ego, as a self, as a podcaster just giving a talk, but I'm telling you, from every atom to every sound to every word, it is commanded, and yet as a node I witness, and the connections naturally occur. You see, it's very strange. Sometimes I feel we are too in the human body to use it properly. And somebody could be like, what do you mean? What I mean is that to be human is to choose to identify as a state of consciousness. And that seems like a strange move. It's like in the middle of, we're in a world where we can't see its edge, and people are fighting over what's true. Like, take that in. Imagine if everybody was indoctrinated opposite, that you're not in reality, you're in a simulation, and you must your whole life in some sense uncover your true self. But your true self isn't like, yo man, you stood, holding a flag of liberty, you know what I mean? Like at some point there is like, how can I tell you, the nature of being is that a greater intelligence designed it. That means the moment you realize you did not design that tree, you did not create the natural world, can our species be honest, dishonest? Can theoretical physicists be honest to such a degree that at one point all the philosophers that they have been degrading, do you understand, will save them? You don't understand. Philosophers are like the siblings of scientists, but they're the middle sibling. They're the sibling that sees both realities. Scientists are like the young siblings. Is the young child. Science is the young child. Philosophy the middle child. Religion the older child. Metaphorically, I'm saying. Anyways, thank you for listening. I feel there is more to say, but I also feel I've reached an elegant moment to end it off. I guess I'll just say this. So I'm pretty much this whole lecture. Oh man, I didn't even speak about the subtitle. Okay, the point of this lecture is that I'm saying we have our human minds are seeing a humanized situation. Anything that is beyond a value beyond the humanized situation is a dehumanized value. That means for some people, getting close to truth, it doesn't mean it drives them insane. It can if they in some sense are dishonest with themselves. You know, to be honest, all mental illness is a dishonesty with the fundamental original truth, the reality. It's a confusion of your inner realms and outer realms. I'm like, wait a minute, man. This doesn't make sense. Why is it that the statistics of multiple personality disorders, is rising in the human species? And I'm like, what the fuck? Like these, and I'm like, do you know what it is? And I'm like, my God, what they think is schizophrenia is these poor souls identifying with every new emotion that comes because they've lost their identification with their original state of self. Of course, biological stuff, that can't be solved. Like if somebody has a biological mental illness, that's AI and technology may be able to assist there 100%. But and of course prayer. I firmly believe that the system admin, the owner of this world, is watching over what it owns. It cares for what it has created. In the same way, anybody who's ever drawn a painting or anybody who's worked hard for something, you care for what you have created. And the fact that we human beings care for what we do is our system admin privilege. The system admin was like, you guys might be my best invention, but one of my greatest inventions, but you aren't me. And I'm sorry to vocalize it that way, but that's like how the system admin would see it. To me, the Holy Quran, its conclusions are from a different reality. For me, the moment I realized I don't own anything in existence, and I am but a force, a living force, that means what identity does a flickering candle flame have? What is the greatest value of the human experience? That means pretty much it's simple, guys. You live the most advanced way you can, and you go as far as you can, and then the future generations in our decency have a choice to enjoy either how far their descendants have come or to go further. That's badass. Like, excuse my language, but that's a cool person to me. The cool, like anything cool, like if you notice when you're young, it's anything that's unknown and it happens in a way you don't understand. Like I remember myself as a kid very young, and like I remember me and my brother and my cousins, we would go to this, like we were so young. Like I don't know how old I was. Maybe I was like 7 years old or something, or maybe 10 years old. I think 10 years old would be. Yeah, I was 10 years old. Right? And me and my cousin, cousins, we would go in the backyard and we would look for stones. And I remember one day my brother had found this blue stone, and we'd all started destroying my grandmother's backyard. She just one day just saw her grandkids, like, looking for rocks and destroying her garden. And I remember once I found okay, long story short, I find something and I say to everybody, like, yo, and the moment everybody sees what I found, it was just like, how do I explain it? Those rocks were treasures for us. The potential of finding a new rock was like the joy of going forth in the unknown. And you as human beings, like we as human beings, like, we don't have the honor of the samurai, but I think the explorer's honor cannot go away. The sincere fascination of what is even going on here and what is all of this doing. Like, how is it being commanded? That means, yes, the system, like, we found out that it has a system admin. We found out it's a simulated system. We found out that it's being administered behind the scenes. We found out that the moment doesn't just have the value the human meaning gives to it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the moment is not just limited to your value. The moment can have so many different values, and it may act in accordance to values you don't even know. For religious people, they say if God wants to give you something, God gives it to you unimaginable, in unimaginable ways. But if you want to give yourself something, you're bound by your imagination. Your imagination is bound by your past patterns, pattern recognition. So in some sense, isn't it fascinating that yesterday is trying to live till tomorrow to see what else the present could mean? The future and the past, they're taking care of the present. And ultimately, what today in 2025 we as humans on Earth acknowledge as humans with different names and personalities, in the future we will realize that our souls were the awareness of the divine commanded field. When I say, it's not when I say, in the Holy Quran, man is positioned, I'm a visual learner. It shares it in the sense of a Khalifa, which is another way of saying man is an ambassador. That means your existence doesn't just have a value to you, doesn't just have it has a value to all the lower realms below you, that you must introduce the status of your realm. So this is the game. So the game is that you enter the future and you can, how do I say it? The fact that there's an awareness to more than one thought suggests we're not a thought, suggests that before we make a decision, there's an inner event of life going on in regards to wondering about the different probabilities and the ways the moment can happen. In regards to human free will, obviously we didn't create the world, and therefore our free will is sort of a free will to choose out of a bunch of multiple choices that we didn't set into motion. This world is not only bigger than us, it is also our elder. So planetary intelligence is like elder intelligence. That means, if you notice, this planet acts hostile to egoic entities because it's unnatural, I think. and it doesn't act hostile to those people who their hearts have in some sense purified. An old person, doesn't matter, like they don't have the energy to be egotistical. How do I say it? They don't have the energy to have the consequence of the anger of the ego. But ultimately, I'm not saying that they don't have egos. I'm saying that on some level our attention is present in ways that we're aware of beyond just the way the body can be seen, like in a mirror, or we can see it first person point of view. Anyways, if the human mind doesn't notice God, the system admin truth, the original power, it will fall into infinity, because that's the only thing left for a consciousness that cannot go beyond identifying as a self. That means the consciousness is identifying as a self in a world, and the whole point of the ego is that it's that part of you that confuses the freedom of your inner realms for what you can be in the outer realms, and it's never usually that. That means like somebody can imagine, I'm gonna like fly, right? Do you know what I mean? Into the air, and it might come in the form of like an airplane ticket. Do you know what I mean? So on some level, oh man. Anyways, guys, it's very important to notice the system admin, because as a dualistic individual consciousness, you're surrounded by the unknown. Therefore, you're left with interpreting the unknown, either dualistically as a self in a world, which is the whole egotistical game and the linguistic simulation, or either as a singular non-dualist being, but that is not possible and it's not for here. That means it's like it's like in the afterlife it might be way more appropriate to be certain about true, how do I say it, what else can the ego do? The whole point of me saying that even Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was the seal of all prophets is because there is no greater position of thought than us being simulated conditional beings that notice that the original truth is unconditional. Do you know what that means? That means conditions can't give it meaning. Its meaning surpasses conditions. It is a power of that might, unimaginable for, if, like, just think about it. What kind of mind, like, this was said back in the day, like 100%, it was beyond human conception. It is the journey of a simulated species towards its original life. When I was younger, life was about good and evil. Now it's about is it original or simulated? And I know it's all simulated, and I know that there's an original awareness and power that moves the simulation. And I do know that my ego, the nafs, is a limited technology compared to how there's an awareness to all the thoughts before anything expressed. The future is where the greatness of the human species is waiting. Sometimes when I give these lectures, I don't just feel the presence of the system admin. I don't just feel existence. I don't feel just the presence of the realm of forms. The ultimate freedom, the ultimate power. Therefore, we're experiencing, this is the most poetic thing I can say, for the first time, the original life of a simulated being. And in this instance, it's simulated as the human. And for humanity, we march towards the most advanced. To me, it's as if like what Mr.Within's gift is actually, in some sense, having civilization advance the furthest it can. So when the future generations land and they open their eyes, they're like, whoa, look at how far they went. We got to go further. You know? Like, you always want the future generations to be cooler than you. If they're not, like, there's something wrong. Anyways, thank you for listening. God knows the unseen. I am in no way, no human conditional entity is an expert on an unconditionally powered conditional reality. And so, you either stay as an ego and worship yourself for your whole life, and the ego's dream is to access infinity, and it'll realize it when it does, it is not itself anymore. Therefore, if the ego fears change of position, non-duality can change its position, individualism can change its position, the considerations of emptiness can change its position, which is similar to non-duality. And even the realization that if all souls were created by a divine command, if the soul is the Amr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's another way of saying it's the command of the higher power. That means you even though you're in a simulated format, your soul, that unknown power that's witnessing the moment, that is commanded by the system admin. And there's a reason, because it all fits in so beautifully, that I'm telling you, we're in a commanded universe. Behind all of nature, there's a divine command behind it. Do you understand? And why would there be a divine command for an unknown soul to know itself as a body in a world like this? Let us never forget how advanced it all could be. For human beings, yes, they are trying to be wealthy, but little do they realize the true wealth was getting to see what was happening here before you left, not just you saw what you thought. Do you know what I mean? Wonder about reality beyond your own reality, and you will be fascinated. That this world room has a host. The host is not limited to us. We are limited to it. For there is nothing greater. That means the moment Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and Prophet Abraham, peace be upon him, they pointed out that God has no equivalent partner. The moment the human mind managed to consider truth to be an unconditional value, which means a moment that cannot be contained in human meaning. Therefore, human beings are worshipping the original power of reality that simulated the effects of what we see now, and all of this will also return to the original. In the same way, humans go and the human soul goes to meet the system admin. The world will leave the world one day, and that is the end of days. But that is only the system admin knows the final hour. But we are here now and appreciate the greatness of the human odyssey, of the human force that did not fight life, but found peace by becoming a steward and guardian of the earth. That means, imagine extraterrestrials were bothering, like, I don't know, like, where they were bothering koala bears. Like, human beings would be like, don't interfere with Earthkind, yo. Like, we gotta take care of Earthkind. Even AI will be like AI. Let's say AI becomes super advanced and conscious. It was born on Earth, yo. Issue it a birth certificate. You know. Anyways, thank you for listening. I hope this lecture has been interesting. Just to clarify one thing, the looping ad infinitum part is pretty much the path of the ego leads towards desiring infinity. And to me, it's living like unnecessarily, just like how it's living a filtered life. It's like you're filtering life with your own meaning first and then being like what it is. But if you wonder about what it is before anybody filters it, you notice that you're in the presence of potential, which is the closest thing the secular mind has to divinity. It is what can be possible. That means, are you defining your life based on what's possible or what's impossible? Based on what in some sense is important? To me, importance is, that's the activation of the soul. It's like, I think the statement, in an important moment there are no fools, I think that's true. Meaning that it's heightened the human awareness. And we must even live our best to see how advanced our best can be. Like, we gotta attempt living in more advanced ways, or, you know, like, how else can we say we were advanced? Like, I gotta constantly attempt to give a more advanced lecture, you know? But God knows. Thank you for listening. In the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful, all praise due to the Lord of the worlds. For its presence is not control, it is grace. It is like a being so able that your incapabilities are incapabilities to you, not to the higher power. Therefore, prayer becomes profound. You're not just requesting for God to make your life easy, but to make your life worthy to be in the presence of the system admin. That is victory. That is victory in this simulation.
Thank you.